2026 is just chapter one of an epic novel that's going to last about probably 20 to 30 years. What's good, everybody? It's me, the Siren, the Mermaid, the Witch, your favorite hot boy spiritualist. And today, on this episode of the Spiritual Digest on the Toby Network channel here on YouTube, we are going to talk some spiritual woo when it comes to what's going on currently and what's to come. All right. So, you heard me start off this video by saying that 2026 is chapter one in an epic novel, a global novel that's probably going to last for about 20, maybe 30. Let's hope not that long, but 20 to 30-ish years, right? That's the truth. But before I get into that, I want to kind of rewind and take us back to 2025 because 2025 was the prologue of the book. So if we're looking at this book that we're talking about, we can argue, we can say, we can conceptualize that 2025 was the prologue and 2026 is chapter one. Now, let's get into why I say. Let's talk astrology real quick. So, at the end of 2024, in November, Pluto officially entered into Aquarius. Now, we're talking about tropical astrology here, all right? Now, looking at tropical astrology, technically Pluto first entered into Aquarius in 2023, but then it kind of regressed back into Capricorn and then, did some of that stuff. But Pluto officially, meaning it's not going to regress again, officially entered into Aquarius in around like November 2024, right? Which is why I say 2025 was like the prologue of everything. Because a lot of what was going on in 2025 kind of was a foreshadow for what we're experiencing now in 2026. Okay. Especially when we're looking at regimes, particularly like in the United States of America and the current presidential regime that we have. We're seeing a lot, we're feeling and experiencing a lot of bullshit right now in 2026, but sprinkles of that was starting really in 2025, which also makes sense because the elections were in 2024, but our current president did not get inaugurated until 2025. Right, so just looking at it from America standpoint. Now, this is not an America specific video, but I do live in America, so there is that, and America's going through her own Pluto return, so okay. And a lot of what's happening and going to happen is very much contingent upon the fall of the Western empires, which includes the United States of America. Okay. So yeah, a lot of shit was going on in 2025. A lot. Right. We started seeing even more inflation. Granted, we've been had inflation, but we started to see even more inflation, even more political unrest, even more rights being stripped away, and fascism growing globally at higher levels to the point where we have it now, where at the time of this recording, the US has bombed Iran, and people are talking about, oh my gosh, is war going to start again? Governments are shutting down. Like, things are picking up, things are getting worse. And even when we look at the environment, things are getting worse, which they've been getting worse for years now, right? But if we're looking specifically at Pluto and Aquarius type transits, we can look at 2025 as being the prologue. And I say the prologue because even though we thought 2025 was doing numbers, even though we thought it was showing us wala, 2025 was really just a teaser for what 2026 is. And that's something spiritually that I've been getting. That's a message that I had been getting all throughout 2025 that, okay, if you think 2025 is crazy, just wait until 2026. And by the time of me recording this episode, we're really just in the beginning of 2026. Like, we have not even hit spring. We're in March. at least at the time of me recording this. So 2026 has really just begun. And she's already gone crazy. She's already gone crazy. Okay, like, bitch. She's already gone crazy. So a lot of the messages that I've been getting are literally coming out as true because 2025 in many ways feels like just the teaser of 2026, meaning that 2025 is the prologue of the novel. Now, what is the novel that we're talking about? When I say novel, what am I referring to? Well, I'm talking about the downfall of the Western empires. I'm talking about the collapsing of colonialism and capitalism, these demons, the death of old institutions, and the rebirth of something new. And this is something that I've talked about a lot on my podcast and my Patreon, the Poppy Walters Grotto podcast and the Poppy Walters Grotto Patreon. So definitely check those out, subscribe to it, especially the Patreon, because on the Patreon, I give y'all more information in details than I do on the podcast because I cannot just share everything just out there. No, something's got to be behind a paywall. But I did make an episode. It was the last episode of season 1 of the Poppy Walters Grotto podcast, with the extended cut being on the Patreon version, and it's called Ogu is Here. And in that episode, I talked about the Igbo concept of Ogu, which is karmic balance and retribution, really. The policing force, and how we are currently in a time period of Ogu, different Ogus. Ogu from the water, Ogu from the divine feminine, Ogu from nature itself. Ogu from the forces of death from ancestors. All of those Ogus are compounding together, right? Creating this nuanced, complex, intensive situation that we are all collectively experiencing right now. And the thing about Ogu is Ogu does have its shadow aspect, but it also has its light aspect because it is a balancing force, it is a policing force, it is a force of justice. Right? So if you want the full context of what I'm talking about, when I'm talking about like Ogu and how Ogu is here, check out that episode on the podcast and Patreon because I go into it. It's over an hour plus content, and I just can't rehash it fully over here. So check that out. Right? But that is the novel we're talking about. We are talking about the collapse of the current system and the rebirth of a new system. Now, this is going to take about maybe 15 to 20 or 20 to 30 years. Now, if we're looking specifically at the Pluto in Aquarius transit, that's supposed to stay until about 2043. All right. From what I last checked, in tropical astrology, Pluto is supposed to remain in the sign of Aquarius until 2043. We are currently in 2026. That's how many years from now? I think like 13 more years from now, if I'm correct. Either 13 or 23 more years from now. I'm not exactly sure, y'all. The math has escaped me. The math has escaped me. My math could be very off. I'm just chatting, so please. It's some time period. It's some time. It's definitely over a decade. It's a decade and some change, right? Now, when Pluto is in Aquarius, which I talked about, I believe, on this channel before, Pluto in Aquarius. If not, I've definitely talked about it on my other platforms. But when Pluto is in Aquarius, it is a time period of upheavals, right? It's a big time of Ogu because Aquarius is a zodiac sign that represents humanitarianism, innovation, liberation, the community, the people, right? But it's also very much connected to chaos. And that is what Pluto in Aquarius does, because Pluto is a planet of upheavals, of life and death and rebirth, like that death to rebirth access. Pluto is all about the underbelly, the underworld, bringing things to the surface, alchemy, change, intensity. All right. So Pluto in Aquarius is going to bring about intense upheavals, intense rebirths, innovations that force things out, intense rebirths, intense deaths of things physically and metaphorically. power going back to the people, struggles between the establishment and the people that are bloody and deadly, but that are liberating. Last time Pluto was in Aquarius, we had the Haitian Revolution, we had the French Revolution, we had the American Revolution. These things are documented, right? This is spiritual science because that's what astrology is. All right, and this is just me talking about from the tropical astrological perspective. It goes even deeper and even more detailed when we look into Vedic. But I ain't gonna talk about Vedic because I'm not qualified enough to give y'all the Vedic stuff. But when we get to there, it goes even deeper, and they're all pretty much saying similar things. Of now is the time of finding out from fucking around. Now is the time of deep liberation. We are now in the downfall, the destruction, the death of capitalism, of colonialism, and all that it brings about, including white supremacy, because that is a colonial construct and vehicle and mode that colonialism has used to destroy communities and this planet. Okay? And 2026 is just the first chapter. So if you think things are crazy now, if you think it's hard now, if you think shit is wild now, just wait, because baby, this is chapter 1. This is chapter 1. Wait until we get into 2027. Wait until we get into 2028. Currently in tropical astrology, Saturn is in Aries, but so is Neptune. That's going to bring about some revelations. Okay, with 2026, we've seen revelations of the Epiphiles. You think y'all thought that was bad? Just wait. It's gonna get even worse. But I don't want to fearmonger because I see a lot of people, especially spiritual people, talking about what's to come, and they're fearmongering. And I want y'all to remember everything is nuanced, okay? Go back and watch that Toby Talk episode about nuance. Everything is nuanced. Yes, shit is getting bad. Shit is bad. It's been bad. All right? I said 2025 is the prologue, but really, this whole book is just a sequel to stuff that's been going on. It's been bad for a lot of people. Myself, me personally, it's been bad for me prior to 2025. It's been bad for my people. For many people, it's been bad. Things are just intensifying because we're getting to the end. But the end is going to take a decade and some change. All right? So I want y'all to understand, it's not that things have just gotten bad out of nowhere. And again, I don't want to fearmonger anybody, but I want us to be sober. I want us to be rational. I want us to wake up to understand that all these things that are happening don't happen out of context, and many of the things that we're just now finding out about have been going on for decades, even centuries. You're just now waking up to it. You're just now being forced to confront it, because for many of people, they've been new about it, but it's easy to push back in the back of the mind when you have so much things to do, when you have so many distractions, when you're overworked, etc. But now it's all up in your face. Now you have to confront it. Now you have to confront it. Right? But this is chapter 1. And again, I don't want to fearmonger nobody, but I want us to understand that multiple things are always true at once. It is going to get fucking nightmarish, but it's also going to get fucking euphoric. Because death and life and rebirth are a cycle, and creation and destruction are the same energy. They're literally the same energy, just different polarities of the same energy. And where there is destruction, there must be creation. Where there is death, there will always be new life that comes about from that death. This is Ogu at play. Ogu is not one or the other. Ogu is a balancing force. It's like a scale. So where there is one, there will be the other. That is just nature. That is how it goes, especially when we're looking at Igbo cosmology. That is just a spiritual principle of things. That's just a spiritual principle of things. And so I want to make this video to prepare you all. Because some people might be like, oh my God, hopefully it's going to blow over with after this presidency. No. We got like what in the US, like what, 2 more years of the presidency? 2 more years and some change because the next president, would be sworn in the year after that, after the election, 2029. No, it's not just going to change with the new presidency. It's not about, oh, if we collectively manifest and hope, we can choose a new timeline. No, that's not what this is. Things are set in stone and they will play out. No amount of you manifesting and hoping for a new timeline is going to change things. It will influence things, it will color things, but what is going to happen is destined and it will happen. This is not going to blow over in 2 years. This is not going to just change with a new presidency. And this is something that's going on globally. But I also don't want you to get apathetic and feel too overwhelmed and feel defeated, because this too is just a cycle. It's going to last around 15 or 20 or 30 years, but it's just a cycle. And after that, a new cycle will begin. One that is a lot brighter. But even in this novel, yes, there will be traumatic and painful things, but there's also going to be such fun and vibrancy and color and wealth and enjoyment. And if you see 2026 as chapter 1, not only will it sober you, but it might just inspire you to live. It'll help you strategize for real. To understand that we're running a marathon, we're not in a race. There are things that we can do to put ourselves in better situations. Okay, you got to do the things. Check out that episode here on the Spiritual Digest. You got to do the things in order to thrive. But do know that we are working with divine timing. We are very much working with the timing of the divine. And with that, you just got to give it up to God. You just got to surrender that out. You just got to surrender that out. Because this is just chapter 1. I don't know about y'all, but I'm going to make it to the end of the book, to the epilogue and beyond. That's my destiny. And even though this novel may be crazy, we are all characters in the book, and different characters have different experiences. I'm going to make sure that I have the best experience I can, given the context of the book. My hope for you is that you do the same. But in order to do that, you have to understand that you're in the book, right? You have to understand what the book is, what the context is, what the narrative is, how it's playing out. And you also have to make the conscious decisions to surrender what you have to surrender out to do what you were called here to do as well. To be in alignment with the book. This is the Spiritual Digest, so we're talking about spiritual things, right? You're going to have to honor your off-fall, pick up your off-fall, your authority, your mandate. For my Igbo people that know what off-fall is, you sabi, if you don't know what off-fall is, it's spelled OFO. Type in OFO Igbo on YouTube or Google, and you'll learn what the off-fall is. Because I'm not going to explain it to you. I'm just not going to. Not in this episode. You got to honor your taboos. You got to get to know yourself. You got to be a good person, right? Be active in community build, and you got to create. Create new stability, because these foundations that we relied upon are falling. These institutions are not helping us. They're not serving us, and they're falling. If we understand that during this narrative of this book, that the whole theme is the downfall of the oppressions that have been holding us back, the way we are in alignment with that is we contribute to the downfall of those oppressions. We don't feed those things because oppression is a spirit. White supremacy, patriarchy, homophobia, capitalism, all these things, they're spirits, they're demons, actually, demonic forces. And the less we allow them to possess us, the more we fight against them, the better we'll be, the more we'll be able to receive the positive ogu that is coming. Because negative ogu or karma is here, but so is positive. What you do depends on which one you're aligned with. Okay? Your actions, not just your intentions, because the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And at this point, spirit does not give a fuck about your intentions. Your intentions must align with your actions. They're going to look at your actions and trust your actions. We got to move beyond this new age thing of like, oh, intentions is the only thing that matters. No, it's not. No, it's not. If your actions are aligned with your intentions and they are aligned with the program, you'll get the results that you need and perhaps the results that you desire. But if not, well, then you'll get the inverse, you'll get the opposite, you'll get the counter. Okay? Let's talk briefly about what to expect in this book. Okay? These are some general predictions. One thing about me is I am a very talented psychic. I'm able to see things that are to come, that are to happen. Now, my timing be off, so I'm not putting a time limit on this. Some things you might hear me say some dates, but yeah, even if my date is wrong, the content isn't what I say always manifests because it does. A lot of the stuff that we're going through now, I predicted this 10 years ago, and I've been preparing myself. Which is why to some people it may be like, oh my gosh, how are you coping during this manner? And I'm like, don't get it twisted, it's rough. But I've kind of been in this state for a good 10 years, 10 plus years, so I've been prepared. I've been sobered myself up. Been sobered myself up so that I could be here. So that's why I'm giving this episode for you all. So that y'all can sober yourself up in chapter 1. If you like, sober yourself up in chapter 2. Don't sober yourself up in chapter 20. Let's not that don't sober yourself up in chapter 15. Okay? Get with the program earlier, because the earlier the better. So what are we to expect? Well, point blank period, the downfall of the American empire. The US no longer being a global world power. That is one thing. Now, how this manifests is going to manifest in different ways. The vibe, the energy, is based off of the communication I've been getting from spirit, the confirmations from other spiritualists, and even the astrology is it's giving war. Now, I'm not saying this is World War III. I'm hoping it's not, but it is giving some sort of war. It could even be a war between the people and the government, right? So understand that these things can take the form of different stuff because it's nuanced, right? And war can look differently. Just like everything we're going through right now is spiritual warfare. So understand that war can look so different. But divisions between people along class lines, even along racial lines, and along political lines, right? All these things in combination with quote unquote war are going to fracture the United States and erode it to the point where she cannot become what she was again. Now, this doesn't mean the United States of America is not going to be here, but understand that every empire falls. This is documented historical fact. The historians have even gotten it down to a science. That's one of the reasons why I've been preparing myself, because back in high school, in AP World History, we had to learn about the rise and falls of empires and basically literally read articles that break down how historians have documented it to basically a science of like 200 or something years. I don't remember the exact number of how long an empire has to be at its peak before it crumbles. And it's been accurate each time. And a lot of these fall in line with astrological transits. Funny enough, the woo woo is Tralulu, right? Hmm. And my professor at that time period had us talk about, be like, okay, if these are the signs and these are the years that they go, what stage is the U.S. empire in? And everybody in my class at that time, we basically were like, oh, we're entering into winter. We came to unanimous decision. So that alone was telling me, yeah, it's time to pack this shit up. We're at the end. We're at the end. My teenage ass, I was like, oh, and now we're here, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, was right. We was all right. Okay, so the end of the US empire. Now, like I said, this doesn't mean that the United States country is not going to be here. It very well probably will. It could be, but it might not be. It might transform into something else. But the global dominance of US culture, music, movies, entertainment, and political power is not going to be a thing anymore. It's not. It's not. And for some of that, especially when it comes to culture and music, it's unfortunate because we know that the US's greatest export, other than guns, right, is entertainment, particularly African American entertainment. And one thing that the United States of America is going to do is they're going to utilize that as leverage and as collateral. And when they crumble, they're going to basically try to have that, you know, be the check that they cash, but they're not going to have any money in the bank, which is part of the reason why, at least among the African diaspora, we're seeing a whole rise of diaspora wars and FBA type movements and stuff. It's a CIA psyop. That's another conversation, and that will be another video, perhaps another day. But they're going to utilize African American culture as a collateral. Now, African American people, those who are about community and are willing to continue to stay in community with not only fellow African Americans, but other people across the diaspora, will thrive. Those who don't and who play into Americana first will literally fall and crumble with the empire. And that's not just for African Americans, that's also for people across all different racial lines. I'm only highlighting African Americans because I'm black. So, all right. But that is something to anticipate. And I'm also highlighting that as well because I want my fellow black people across the diaspora to peep game and to move and act accordingly because we need each other. We need each other, right? Now, the US is not the only thing that's going to fall. We're going to see collapses in Europe, which we're already seeing it, especially in places like France, with France's former colonies cutting them off, those types of things. So don't think that it's going to be something where it's like, okay, the US is crumbling. Where can I move? Let me just move to France. Let me just move to the UK. Let me just move to that. No, fascism is rising there. And literally, the global powers, the Western world, is crumbling. The US is in many cases going to be the star of the show, but she's not going to be the only one. They're all going to fall because they all contributed in setting up the oppressive, degenerative, horrible, demonic systems that we have today that we consider normal. So they're all going to have to pay for that. All right, it's a fall of the West and those that uphold those toxic and oppressive values. Now, because the US is going to fall, we're going to see a lot of people from the US trying to immigrate other places. And it's going to be like a reverse type of situation, mirroring type of situation, where it's like the US was a country of immigrants, right? And now it's going to be a country of like expats, like people moving out. And there will be negative reactions to that because with the US falling, a lot of sentiments, a lot of people are not going to like the US anymore, and then having that US identity in many ways was a privilege before, but moving in further chapters of this book is not going to be as much of a privilege. It's going to be, in some cases, a target because people are not going to stand for the Americana, and they're going to remember how many of those Americans who are trying to move treated those who immigrated to their country. Okay? Now, we are going to see a lot of black people across the diaspora reconnecting as well as moving to Africa because things are going to be changing because it's not just instability that's coming to the United States. The whole Americas, so the Caribbean and Latin America, we're going to see a lot of instability, increases in racial violence and things like that, which is going to, and a racial, awakening, spiritual awakenings that's going to make a lot of Black people from the across the diaspora wanting to move back to Africa, which we will see that, but understand as well that Africa is not going to be necessarily some sort of utopia because Africa is also going to be undergoing and going through her own revolution on the Patreon or on TikTok because I definitely have thoughts, but it's going to be the beginning of the end of the old Nigeria, which is probably going to last for a good, I don't know how long, but we'll say probably decade. And then after that decade, the rebirth of the new Nigeria. What Nigeria is going to need is people going back to their spiritual traditions, which we're going to see that in Nigeria. We're already seeing an Igbo Renaissance, and that is going to continue. So all of my fellow Igbo people or people who are connected to Igbo roots, tap into that Igbo Renaissance because that is going to be one of the positive ogus that comes out. That is going to be a way for Igbo people to not only rebuild, because we're going to need to rebuild, but also to preserve, to protect, and to acquire wealth because it is going to be a wealth generator, tapping back into Igbo spirituality, Igbo culture, Igbo art, Igbo all that stuff. And, making it a renaissance, right? Because the old structures of Nigeria are going to fall. We're going to see a lot of environmental disasters. We're also going to see political instability and revolutions occurring. And yes, these revolutions will be bloody. How long they last, when they occur, I don't know, but they will be. They will be. We're even going to see a queer and sexual revolution occurring in Nigeria. Because if you know the situation with that in Nigeria, it's criminalized, but there's so many gay motherfuckers in Nigeria. So that's not going to be sustainable, nor is the political corruption and poverty. These things we're reaching a boiling point, a boiling over point, an exploding point, and 2027 is basically chapter one when we're looking at Nigeria's context, right? Although, if you know the history of Nigeria, you would already know that this has just been a long time coming, but there's that, right? But it's not just Nigeria. We're going to see a lot of uprisings and upheavals in other African countries like South Africa and across Western Africa, Central Africa, Eastern Africa, even Northern Africa, especially when it comes to conversations of land reparations and racial politics, especially in like Southern Africa and Northern Africa. We're going to see these things because the whole world is going through a rebirth. The whole world is going through kind of like, I don't know if I want to, if disintegration is the word. I don't think disintegration is the word. A restructuring is going through a restructuring, an alchemization, right? We've seen things with celebrity culture. Celebrity culture is dying. A lot of the celebrities that we have currently, even your faves, 5 to 10 years from now, either their complete reputations will be changed, they will no longer be here, some of them not even going to be alive. So do prepare for shocking moments like that. But also, this landscape of what it is to be a celebrity and what it means to be a celebrity is going to completely shift. There's going to be a whole new wave of celebrities, many of them being more indie in the sense of like they are independent, but also indie in the sense of like maybe they're not necessarily A-listers, but they have strong followings that allow them to support their lifestyles. But you will also see new A-listers. You will. And many of them are going to be spiritual. Speaking of spirituality, we're going through a spiritual awakening, a spiritual revolution, where this whole new age shit that we've been doing, this whole I can practice anything because it's my soul. In my past life, I was Black, and then the other one Chinese, other than this, or and I'm a star seed. That shit is going to go away because once the world is crumbling, where people are going to realize that that shit was just fantasy and it's not real and it cannot sustain them. Because what? Because the fuck do you mean you're a star seed who was a Chinese princess in a past life, and what does that mean when you have no food, when you have no water because the water is poisoned, and the institutions that you have don't work, and there is no Medicare, there is no Medicaid. Yet the people who are in their ancestral tradition, who know how to actually commune with the land, seemingly are doing okay. They may not have everything, but they're able to live, and you are struggling, dealing with suicidal thoughts. This is going to be the reality. This new age spirituality shit gonna go. And a lot of the spiritual people that are practicing it, a lot of them are either going to drop spirituality and run to either atheism or the church and stuff, Abrahamic faith, or a lot of them are going to be forced back to their own indigenous spirituality, or so it's going to be three: either they're going to atheism, the church, being forced back into tradition, or they're going to die. Morbid, I know, but I'm just letting y'all know of the context of things, right? We're going to even see a lot of people who are in their indigenous spirituality fall. So I'm talking about a lot of the seasoned Dibia, Babalaos, Mambos, Hungans, shamans, or whatever tradition fall because they've not been doing what they're supposed to be doing, because the divine feminine and the waters are changing things. But also, we're going to see these Abrahamic institutions crash and burn as well. Just like some people are going to be grifting back to the church, some people are going to be leaving the church, leaving the mosque, leaving the synagogue, because those won't be sustainable for them anymore. And people are going to realize the histories behind them, and those are going to crash and burn. Right? But at the same time, we're going to see great innovations. We're going to see new businesses flourish, businesses that prioritize community building. We're going to see new innovations when it comes to land communication, like being a student of the land, agriculture, even certain things with technology. We are going to see technological things. Don't be surprised if Apple, Samsung, all these things are not here 15 to 20 years, 25 years from now. Don't be surprised. In fact, let's hope they not. Let's get something new, bitch. Because they're not giving like they're supposed to be giving. Let's get something new. Let's get something new, right? But we will get different things. A lot of things that are more community oriented. Some people are going to be stepping into a lot of wealth. There's going to be, think of it like dynamic shifts when it comes to power to the people and when it comes to wealth. All right. A lot of these billionaires and stuff like that, they're not going to be here. Some of them may be here 20 years beyond, but best believe within their next family generation, they will eventually die with nothing. But we will have new people who are stepping into massive amounts of wealth and that distribute it to communities. We're going to get new artists. And a lot of these artists are going to be spiritual people. A lot of these people that are acquiring more wealth are going to be spiritual leaders, right? And this might sound weird to some, and this ain't no cultish shit, right? It might sound weird to some, but if we go back to indigenous societies across the globe, this is how it was. The quote unquote king was the high priest, the queen was the high priestess. And there were also checks and balances that made sure that if they did not do what they did, then not only could society, but the spirits would deal with them in real time. In real time. Okay? We're also going to start seeing a lot more magic in the mundane. A lot of the things that people thought were just fake spiritual science is going to start proving them. Do not be surprised if we finally find a way to prove the existence of ghosts. That might be in 30 years plus, but I do feel in our lifetime. Do not be surprised. Do not be surprised. Now, of course, people could be like, oh, alien, sure, maybe, but we ain't worried about them. Let's try to find the mermaids, actually. Actually, no, because y'all don't need to know about us. But this book that we're experiencing is going to be very wild. In many ways, it's going to feel like a comic book, right? But it's going to feel realer than that. Speaking of comic books, Marvel and DC, they finna go. Now they still want to be here, but they're not finna be the biggest ones in town. So enjoy them while you can, but also get ready for what else is coming, because the new things that are coming, you will never be able to compare them, because you will never be able to compare, because Marvel and DC will never be able to compete or compare with those. Trust. Um, but yeah. And when I say comic books, like things might feel like comic books, meaning that it's going to be wild. And it's also going to be exciting. So it's going to be a very interesting time where the chaos is going to be beautiful. It's going to be chaotic, but it's going to be beautiful. And that is something that I want y'all to start holding space with. And I want y'all to Sober yourself. Again, please don't dip into fear mongering. If you're overwhelmed, that's okay. Ground. But do know that as much horrendous things as you're going to see equally as much beautiful things. It is going to be balanced. Hold that in your spirit. If we're going to see, if we're going to see quote unquote apocalyptic things, then know that we're also going to see the exact magnitude of the opposite. Because everything's nuanced, right? We're going to see new society. And don't even dip into apocalypto type things because, yes, it is the end of things, but it's the rebirth. Because that's how everything goes: life, death, rebirth. And the world has ended for many people across history many times. But she's still here and is still able to have great eras afterwards. And then bad eras, and then ends again. And then she comes back. What I want and need y'all to do now is to take this moment, this time to sober yourself up, to be like, okay, I'm reading an epic tale. I'm a character, a main character in an epic tale that is going to last for maybe 15 or 20 or 30 years. How do I want to write my story? In a way that is healthy, that is beautiful, in a way that I can not only survive but thrive, in a way that is aligned with the currents that's going on. Because you can always empower yourself, and now is one of the best times to empower yourself. Because even though Spirit has decreed this, Spirit is ready and willing to work with those who are ready and willing to work with them. Because there are magnitudes of blessings that Spirit is ready to give out. Spirit has to. This is how Chineke has said things must be. As things are being taken away and destroyed, things must be given out and be birthed out at the same magnitude, at the same time. So as much as there are spirits that are ready to, like, yeah, let's kill it, let's destroy it, there are spirits that are like, okay, let's grow it, let's give it, let's bless it. And they are waiting to give it to those whose hands are open, those who have clean hands and open hands. If your hand is open and it's dirty, just know they're going to direct you to the spirit that's going to try and kill you. But if your hand is clean but closed, they're not going to pry it open for you. Okay? And of course, as time goes along, whether it's on YouTube or the podcast or the Patreon, we'll talk about this more, you know? So keep in mind, you're going to be okay. All right? You just got to do the things. So go back and watch that. In order to thrive, you got to do the things episode. But also, you need to understand the context. You need to understand the nuances. So go back and watch that nuance episode on the Toby Talk. But also, you need to understand Ogu and what it is. So go and listen to that Ogu episode on the podcast/Patreon. In fact, listen to the Patreon extended cut because that's where the real meat is. All right? It's not a race, it's a marathon. Expand your capacity for duality and to witness heaven and hell and to experience it. How much you experience one or the other in many ways will be up to you and what you do or don't do. Alignment is the key here. We all came here for different things, for different purposes, for different destinies. All right? So keep that in mind. Sober yourself and know that 2026 is chapter 1. But there is a final chapter. And then a new book will be read. So here's to the completion of this book and to the beginning of the new book. This has been the Siren, the Mermaid, the Witch, your favorite hot boy spiritualist. Ade. Bye.